lesson 58 part 11, having just looked at the shoulders, we're now going to look at the leg action functioning within the swing. Now if you ask me to be categoric about leg action, I'd be happy to do so in the backswing. I think the leg action is absolutely a black and white scientific optimum. However, when it comes to downswing, according to the shot you're hitting, leg action will change at an instinctive level and at sometimes a conscious level. You know, if I asked you to pass the coffee in the kitchen, you step across the kitchen and get the coffee pot, you wouldn't even think about how your legs worked. If I asked you to catch a falling vase, your hand and your leg would work together instinctively. And when you play tennis, I'm sure that while there's some coaching of the leg action, when the ball's coming over the net, the racket's going back, the legs are going forward. So I think that the leg action is instinctive, I think it's reflex, but I also think there's a reflex anticipation. When you skim a pebble across a pond, your left hip and left leg lead. And if you film that, you could be forgiven for thinking that that was the actual conscious thought. I don't think it is. I think people do that quite naturally. So going back, I would say that I can be pretty firm and bold in my declaration of what leg action should be. But according to the type of shot, be it draw or fade, low or high, then the legs are going to change somewhat. So let's deal with the simple part of that, or the straightforward part of that to my mind, which is the leg action. If I have good grip and good posture, and I load the shoulder fully, you can see that my right knee has retained most of its flex. Now I can release the club. And you'll notice that my weight shifted and I finished on a flexed left knee. Showed you earlier that when we rotate in horizontal plane, the knee flex is very obviously retained. However, on an inclined plane, it appears the leg straightens a bit more as the hip rises. Now that's not a conscious lifting of the leg or the knee, it's just the fruit of an inclined rotation. So, if you make a swing where the shoulder turn is fully effective, then I would expect the weight to be on a flexed right knee and the left knee moves across somewhat. So, here's a simple demonstration. I used to do this with a comb. I don't have a comb anymore, so now I use a £20 note. If that £20 note is folded and I twist the top through 90 degrees, the whole thing is involved, a lovely radial even twisting through the paper. However, if it just bends a little bit, it doesn't work. The bottom doesn't get affected. But if that is in one line, then you can see that the whole thing operates. So it's like that with good posture. If my posture is poor, I can turn my shoulder, there's very limited leg action. However, if my posture is optimum and I load my shoulder, without conscious thought, my torso, hip action, leg, knee flex and weight shift take place. So it seems fairly straightforward to me that a full shoulder turn will give you a slightly flexed right knee. With a wedge, shorter swing, there'll be more knee flex at the top. With a driver, the biggest swing, there'll be less knee flexed. But the principle is the shoulder rotation in the backswing creates the amount of knee flex at the top. Now, if I swing to the top and stop, and then make a straightforward swing, I would assume that the leg action would work like this. Now for many years, I've always tried to create leg action instinctively in the pupil. By giving them a task, I encourage the legs and the knees and the feet to work in a certain way. But we know from Ben Hogan, he was a great believer that at the top of the backswing, he consciously cleared his hip. And he has a picture of a red cord from the butt of the club to his hip. And you can imagine as Hogan cleared his hip, it pulled the club down into the hitting area. Now, for most of my teaching career, I've tried to create that by getting a pupil to hit the ball down the line. But I'm also in favour of a player getting to the top of the swing and clearing the hip as their first move, because it's good enough for Mr. Hogan, it's good enough for us. One caveat, however, Hogan fought a hook all his early life, and clearing the hip early is certainly a good anti-hook mechanism. So let's just show you that. I'll swing to the top and coil, but I'll clear my hip as the first move. And you'll see that my legs have worked in a certain way. Now, if you're manufacturing shots, again, I would expect the knee flex to change. So if I hit you a fade, I coil and then fade. I believe my left leg will straighten and clear a bit more quickly. So here we go, coil and fade. And I believe that my leg straightened and rose a bit more. Compared to, of course, a draw spin shot. I believe that if I coil and hit you a draw, I'll shallow slightly, my knee flex will stay flexed for longer, and I'll finish with more knee flex, and my body angle will be retained. So here's a backswing that's neutral. I hit you a draw, which I did, and you can see that my knees drove that way. The danger with any model is it can be rigid. Whatever model you adhere to, you have to accept that it's going to change from wedge through to driver. So you can't say categorically you must be in this position, because that can't be true for every club. So the way the legs work to me are a result of a good shoulder coil and the shot you intend to hit. That's the way I've always taught leg action. Load the shoulder, the legs are for free. Hit the shot, the legs are for free. But I'm also of the mind, in certain cases, with the better golfer, as a starting point, clearing the left hip to activate the legs is no bad thing. What I don't think you can do is apply the same rule to every pupil. While the backswing may be a categoric statement of what it should be, the downswing, of course, is a choice, and the art is to lead the pupil to that choice.